If you thought new car prices were getting dumb, boy do I have some bad news regarding the used market, because it's even dumber here. I don't want to hear a single person try to tell me that this is a normal level of inflation and that we should just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. So if you didn't watch the last video, quick update to the US. We are now pausing tariffs for 90 days, but I feel like the impacts on the car market have already arrived, and especially after the 90-day period ends, the car market will just resume on its direction towards being ruined. Also, I have no idea how negotiations are going to go in the coming months. Most economists are kind of holding their tongue in this situation. They're experts, they're much smarter than I am, so because of that, this is super unpredictable. I'll post another video if the tariff situation changes, but for now, let's just focus on used cars this video. So how did we end up in this sticky situation? Well, it's because we pumped the economy at the start of quarantine in hopes of soft landing a recession, only to realize that we were just saving ourselves in the short term, but building an even more painful long term. And unfortunately for those watching this video in April 2025, the long term has arrived and we are now seeing the painful result. To understand this result, let's talk about high interest rates. So interest rates for everything, especially cars, have skyrocketed post-pandemic, and in an attempt to keep the economy moving, banks were approving a lot more subprime loans than ever, which sounds eerily reminiscent to a certain housing crisis. Anyways, flashing back to 2019 prior, it used to be normal to buy a new vehicle or a used one at 4.99% APR, but these days the average APR for new is 7.42% and for used is a horrendous 12.75%. Even for someone who has over 700 credit score, by the way, that's what the average is. Definitely pay attention to the next part because it might actually financially save your life in your 20s. I really wish the school system taught people this stuff because it's criminal how few people know how screwed they are by these three letters. So what is APR? APR stands for annual percentage rate. It is devastating if you don't understand how APR works. A 30 grand car with 29.99% APR is not going to be roughly 30% more. That's what most people unfortunately assume. They're just gonna be like, okay, 30% of 30 grand is like 10 grand, so that's a 40 grand car after interest. Nope. So a 29.99% APR works as a 200 price modifier, not a 30% price modifier. So a 30 grand car with 29.99% APR is actually 60 grand after you sign those loan papers. Now that we know that, let's look at the average of 12.75% APR. This number we showed earlier is still very dangerous, especially when it's combined with the new 72-month average loan period. So we're really just going to use the average of everything to show like the most normal transaction these past few years. 28 grand is the average price of a used car, 12.75% average APR, average of 72 so months. And that works out to well over $40,000. And again, that's not the small little 12%. That 12% here actually acted more as a 40% price increase. I could sit here and list average data or mathematical calculations all video long, but I know that that's not what helps most people truly grasp how horrible this situation is, and they want to see moment-to-moment real-world transactions that fully help sink it in. Like, let's take a look at some of Yusuf's videos, for example.
Calling a customer on a 2016 Chevrolet Silverado, they pay $1,300 a month on that has 150,000 miles.
Interest rate right now is 26% and it's on a 54-month loan. And honestly, I made a deal with the devil.
Calling a customer on a 2014 Honda CRV he bought for $18,000.
I bet you that man thought that he was being responsible because he bought a great car at a great price, but that 24% APR was the sleeper hit that snuck right under his nose. Again, these are real transactions made by real people, and now those statistics I've been repeating throughout this video, we now see how they happened and how they affect people's lives and car payments. Lots of people have got themselves into loans like this because that's how the average got upwards. It's not just dumb clout boys in over their head on Shelby Mustangs or Hellcat Challengers. It's also affecting people who are just trying to buy a work truck or a grocery getter for their family. No one in their right mind would think that a 11-year-old Honda CRV for $18,000 is spoiling themselves. That was a man who honestly thought he was making a sound financial decision before he unfortunately unfortunately walked into the landmine that is the high interest used market we are in. We have to stay educated. Also, please subscribe if you have learned something so far, and share this video to spread the word, especially to someone you love or care about, because you have to keep people educated. And I have to remind people to be extra careful when shopping used, because a lot of these smaller used car dealerships tend to use smaller banks that tend to be basically loan sharks. And that's not me like dehumanizing them. The reality is like they're taking risks on these subprime borrowers, and in order to shoulder that risk, they have to up the interest. And again, the government's encouraging it, and again, it's to stimulate the economy. The point is, it was a mix of everything that got us here. Now we're here though. However, if more people realize why we're here and realize that it's a scam to fall for this insanely high interest, eventually these loan sharks have to go away, because there's not going to be any blood in the water for them to actually go after. I can't just keep blaming banks or clout boys, because at the end of the day, the general consumer still has to hold some level, right? We can't just keep passing the torch of responsibility, right? Like someone has to hold responsibility. There comes a point where buyers themselves need to realize that they are in charge of what they're buying. They're the ones who determine if demand even exists in the first place. I know this video probably isn't going to go hyper viral, but if I can even make a few people a lot smarter where they're not getting suckered by these low list price cars that have extremely high APR, then we can slowly go towards the right direction. At the very least, I hope it helps your life in particular if you're watching this. So I hope it feels like it's worthwhile to even watch this video. The reality is the price gap in terms of percentage between new and used cars also isn't as lucrative as it used to be, so that's also how this can happen, because the fact that the average used car price is still $25,000 in 2025 and at a peak was $28,000 something in 2022, like those are big sums of money still. That's something that straight up breaks my heart, because a lot of young buyers can't even come close to paying that in full. That's why loans are becoming the new go-to. It's why I think when people say stuff like, just pay in full, then you won't have to deal with interest. You guys are all stupid for even having to even learn interest in APR math. Like if you just buy in full, you don't have to deal with it. And I think that's tone deaf, because while that was good advice for Gen X who are, in their 40s and beyond, and boomers who are in their 60s and beyond, and they have 5 cars and 3 properties, and they haven't looked at car prices because they don't need to, because they own several cars, I have to remind that group of people that it's not the 2010s anymore. You can't get a Crown Victoria by giving someone $800 in a used condom for it. Again, like I said, if the average car price is moving up to $28,000, it doesn't magically happen because of 1 or 2 or 3 instances. Several hundreds of thousands, if not even millions of people are obviously getting themselves into those transactions, because that's the new fair market value that we're moving towards. It sucks. And you have to consider that these young buyers who just entered the workforce, they have yet to even build up equity, and they're plagued with massive student loan debt, medical expenses, and a rapidly inflating economy, while also trying to buy a car to get to work. So telling them, oh, just, save up 7 to 10 grand and buy your first car used full in cash, how are they going to save that? Better yet, how are they even going to get to work to save that? They can't save their first few paychecks because they need to get to work to even get those paychecks, and they need a car to get to work in the first place. So they end up having to loan the car to get to work, to then pay the car. It's a vicious cycle, and even 11-year-old Hondas or Chevys with 150k miles are still selling just south of 20 grand. And if they want a 30-year-old car instead, they're gonna still be faced with even 8 grand sometimes, and it's gonna have 250k, even 300k miles. It's gonna be on its last legs, always need repairs, not get them to work reliably, be super stressful, they can't hang out with friends, and that's not something I expect people to subject themselves to. That's why people unfortunately aim for the 10 to 15 year used car market, which is the market that has 15 to 25 grand. That's where we are in the situation we are. Even worse, their online schooling failed them, and they have no idea what APR or compounding interest is, and this is why people ended up taking massive loans in subpar used cars, and APR continually rose through the stratosphere in just a mere 5 years. You can probably see how the whole negative equity situation happened, and boy does it happen. Negative equity. So negative equity in short means that a person owes more money on it than the vehicle is worth if sold at market value. So if they bought a used car for 30 grand but only paid 10 grand of it, that car only sells for 15 grand if that's considered its KBB market value. But they're 20 grand left on their loan. Basically, the vehicle will only liquidate for 15 grand market value, meaning that even if they trade in, they still owe the bank 5 grand because 20 grand minus 15 grand equals 5 grand because the original loan was 30 grand and they've only paid 10 grand of it. So all these numbers to run you through it: 30 grand minus 10 grand they paid, 20 grand left, 20 grand minus 15k market value, 5 grand left. Therefore, that 5 grand, they still owe it to their bank. If they try to trade it in on a new vehicle and take another loan, it actually doesn't magically disappear. It follows them. That's what it means to carry over negative equity. An alternative way of getting out of this negative equity, however, and some of you probably already thought about it, and unfortunately this is why we're in the situation we are, is for people to just be like, nah, screw the market value. I'm selling this car for 20 grand because obviously you don't have to trade the car in at market value. You can just private sale it. Now, when you private sell something higher than market value, obviously that reduces the chances of it being bought. Except unfortunately, everyone else is in the same exact situation who are in over their heads on cars that they were more expensive than they thought, that stuck with these really stupid interest rates, and of course everyone is now in negative equity at the same time. And that's how we got all of these stupid used car prices flooding the market, because if enough people stonewall the market and say, no, this is worth 20 grand, then the market will actually creep upwards. And that's why the used market price rose higher, because these people would be stubborn because they got themselves in a horrible situation. It's kind of like the crypto market crash to some extent. Basically, everyone else is trying to leave the next person holding the bag and cash out as soon as possible before negative equity catches up to them. Now, of course, you can't just keep waiting forever. Eventually, these people will fall too far behind on their payments, because that's the whole reason they're trying to liquidate in the first place, was because they're struggling with the payments. And here comes the boy does it happen part.
No. Wait.
The 2024 repo crisis. Ready for another not so fun fact? Did you know repos were so high in 2024 that even continuing through 2025, repo companies still haven't kept up with last year's demand? There's actually wait list for some repossessions for cars, which is crazy, because then that technically gives those owners a mulligan because they're now able to catch up to their missed car payments. Or most of them aren't choosing to do that. They're just choosing to drive their car longer, because if the repo man isn't going to come to it for another 3 or so months, they may as well enjoy it more or keep using it for what they need to use it for, or they might even try to hide it. This is just a horrible crap storm of a situation that we're in. I've never ever seen the car market in the history forever be this dumb. And now these banks who are taking way too many subprime loans, who are taking way too many risks, now quickly realize, wait a second, no one's actually paying us back, so I guess we have to take their cars back. And now they're trying to repo, but then it's bottlenecking at repos because there weren't enough repo companies to deal with this many simultaneous repossessions across the United States. So to anyone who took high APR who is still heavily upside down on their loans going into 2025, they're either drowning in negative equity or faced with the repo man. So therefore they have to try to sucker someone else to hold their bag by listing their car for a ridiculous price in an attempt to escape their loan and escape their negative equity to avoid the repo man. This is why the used car market is being flooded with abused cars at insanely high prices, and this is where we are now currently. We have not even come close to fully healing from the 2022 used car market. So be very wary of the used car market in 2025. There are definitely still some good deals hiding out there, but you also can find or make a deal a good deal if you know what you're doing. Regardless of whether tariffs pause or unpause or whether negotiations go through, if you stay educated, know what you want to buy, hunt down APR, understand loan periods, then you can get a used car at a decent interest rate at a decent price still. But if you're sick and tired of thinking about the several tens of thousands that you have to sink into cars, but you still need to get to work, well, I've got just the video for you regarding 100-mile-per-gallon motorbikes. Anyways, thanks for watching, and if you love automotive content, then make sure to like and subscribe. Next video should hopefully be a lighter topic. Yeah, it's been kind of a weird situation for the car economy because of, bro, I don't know, this year is wilding, man. Holy crap. I thought we were leaving this stuff behind in the quarantine era, but holy crap. Anyways, thanks for watching. I think I already said that, but yeah, see you all next time. Blade Angel out.